social worker, the school social worker, will have to somehow set the tone by meeting, of course, upon the approval of the rector. I'm really bad today, but I could not postpone your lecture, but I will try to. If it persists, I'm going to postpone it, but I will try to. So the school-wide programming has become widespread and is the most favored way of intervention by school social workers. So the purpose of school social workers is to address social emotional issues while taking the cultural factors and background of students into consideration. It is important to understand that one size suits all approach will never work. Now, given that we face students with several behavioral problems, as school social workers, we need to equip the adults working with them, on a day-to-day basis. So we are talking about the school social worker indulge in some forms of training and preparing the school staff to deal with the situation. But of course, you are not solution providers. You're trying to make them aware of certain things. And not all behavioral problems can be solved. Sometimes you will need the school psychologist. Sometimes other people will be required. Other school specialists will be required. But the point is that to a certain extent, in certain behavioral problems, the school social worker can equip the staff of the school, not with all solutions, but with basic tools that can help the staff and the school social worker to address behavioral problems. Now, in Mauritius, we don't have, in all schools, we don't have school social workers posted. And school social workers are still fighting for recognition and respectability. And the school social workers, they may not be welcomed because these are problems that you're going to face, that you will be unwelcomed in many schools, and your services may not be prioritized. So, as such, a school social worker may often be made to feel like third wheels rotating from one school to another, which is very often part to the fact that the job is not fully recognized because there is no particular framework on which they operate. Yes, Lindsay Sibel is raising hand. Is there any issue?
Yes, sir. I am the vice president of a PTA of a
Yes.
SSS. Uh, Sometimes the problem of the teachers, plus grave
Yes.
qui met enfants la même. Vous êtes absent tous les
Mm-hmm.
jours, vous venez en retard,
Oui.
quand on les teacher worker, on
You're,
rentre là-dedans. Mon
Lindsay,
frère,
are you talking of a primary school or a secondary school?
et secondary school.
A secondary. Don't mention any school, eh? Don't mention the name of any school. So you know that there is a problem related to the staff itself, isn't it? Yes.
Yes, yes.
So let us try to take this in point, and we are going to get back to your idea. and we'll try to see. The point is that we are not expecting the parents. You can switch off your microphone, Lindsay, thank you. So the point is that we are not going to solve problems as a parent. We are going to try to see how a school social worker can try to implement something. This is from the angle from which we need to look at things. Because if ever there is a school social worker, the school social worker won't be able to do anything in relation to problems that are related to staff not coming. The school social worker will be able to maybe contact the school management and inform the school management about the particular problem. But from there on, we need to understand one thing, that apart from recommending that there is a problem in terms of the staff itself, in terms of what Lindsay has said, in terms of the attendance, the school social worker cannot do anything. He cannot do anything because that's the duty of the head of a school. The head of a school to head of a school. We are not going to talk on the responsibility of the head of a school. The head of a school to know how to motivate. There should be a problem when we have a high level of absenteeism among staff. It reveals something. It reveals that something is not working well. It reveals something. Now, if the school management, we are not talking about the school social worker, right? So if the school management is not able to address this, no one will be able to address this. Because the school social worker is posted in a school. When he joins a school, he finds that there are problems, because we need to understand that the school social worker will try to address behavioral issues, behavioral problems among students, not among teachers. We can train teachers. The purpose is to train teachers to understand how to deal with students. But when it comes to the management of the school, that's the responsibility of the school management. Now, you're going to tell me, Monsieur, what will happen if the school management is not willing to do anything? Now, if the school management is not willing to do anything, then obviously, because in a school there is a hierarchy, you need to understand that there is a hierarchy. The teachers, they have their head of departments. Their head of departments, they are accountable to people above, such as in the primary sector, the deputy headmaster, the headmaster. In a secondary school, you have the deputy rector, the rector. So, and in the scheme of duty, and that forms part of the scheme of duty of the school management, we call them the school managers, is really to have ways of finding what can be done. And if they are not addressing this well, those who, of course, who suffer most from that, they are the students. That's inevitable. Now, I think that it's the duty of all responsible citizens to address how far they can, not in terms of school social worker, because we all have children, and when we do find that there are problems that have been highlighted, there are ways of doing things, of bringing the attention of higher authorities about issues that are happening. Of course, in a very pacific way, of course, we are talking about addressing those issues. But the role of a school social worker, again, is not to look into issues that concern the school management. Because you're not supposed to be in conflict with them. You're not supposed to be in conflict with school management. You work in line. If you identify there's a problem, you draw your attention. You draw the attention, but that's it. So the 4 big tasks, I'm going to get back on this again afterwards, because I have a slide specifically on what should we do. The 4 big tasks of school social work, say consultation, assessment, direct intervention, and program development. Consultation takes place with the school staff. Assessment of a situation, you step into a school, you need to know. And this is something that we do note that a lot of school social workers, or whether they are posted in any school, whether it's a primary school or whether it's a secondary school, that's also a major problem. I will accept it, that they are transferred sometimes without even knowing where and when. They just move to a school. And that's the case as well for teachers. We need to accept that they move. The notion of transfer of educators, of primary school teachers, primary school educators and secondary school educators in many schools is something that is sometimes beyond the control of the school social worker. The school social worker is not responsible of transfer of teachers. I told you, you cannot be in conflict with the roles of the management. So sometimes when you are posted in a school, you will be posted in a school or you are trying to address, because I came to understand that many of the students who are, not all of you, but some of you are maybe not posted as school social workers, but they are working in contact with students. And when you work in contact with students, it's easy to say that you need to assess, but how are you going to assess when you are not given the tools? When you find that there are bureaucratic constraints, it's very often discouraging with all the bureaucratic constraints. But you will have to make an intervention. You will have to develop programs. You will have to evaluate the problems, the behavioral problems, including how to help, I think it was clear, how to help students to overcome educational underachievement, whether there are many other behavioral problems as well. So, the education of the school staff is under the responsibility of the school social worker. The education, when you're saying the education of the school staff, say training them to understand on the parameters on which you're working. And you want to plan for successful interventions. You need to provide the relevant services, and you need to continuously monitor, assess the client-practitioner relationships. So I think that it's the role of the school social worker to be on the same level of all the staffs of the school, so that you understand, first and foremost, let them talk about what the problem is in the school. You won't be able to meet each and every staff. That's impossible. You can't meet each and every staff. But if there is a kind of training, a kind of meeting that you can do with the school staff, when you're training them, you are not in a position of hierarchy. You are in a position in a similar level as them. You're training them to get the tools of understanding how to cope, and you are not providing miracle solutions. We don't have miracle solutions. Now, the behavioral problems that we have in a classroom, there are several behavioral issues. We are taking some examples. We have sensory processing disorders. We are taking 4 behavioral issues in the classroom. There are more, many more. You are maybe more familiar with more problems, but I'm taking those 4 problems according to the manual, of course. Sensory processing disorders, aggressive students, inappropriate language and inattentive students. Now, when you have those types of problems with students, it is very important to understand. So let us suppose we are un genre de supposition que tu n'as dans l'école un zwen man staff di normalement on recommande que vous zwen teaching staff ou des man recteur ou des man the headmaster if it is a primary school or if it is a pre-primary school. You ask them about what are the problems that the school face specifically, because all schools may not face the same problems. In some schools, you may be having students that are very aggressive. In other schools, you may be having schools characterized by vandalism. In other schools, you may be having students that don't want to follow the class. They don't want to step into the class. And we are trying to inform the staff about not the solutions as such, but what can they do. And I have listed few advice. I have written its solutions, but few advice that as a school social worker you can give in a training that you're having with your school staff. The first thing is that there is no miracle solution. And all programs that will be implemented, they take time. They take time. And you can find something here which is very interesting. You're the only person who will understand you much better than anyone else. You need to ask the staff if ever there are issues of indiscipline, that they need to learn how to stay calm. And this is something which is very difficult to manage one's emotions. Some students, some practitioners, some of you, whether you are working in primary or secondary school, they do tell me this very sentence: les élèves poussent nous à bout. Les élèves poussent nous à bout. Ou peut dire stay calm, learn to control the reaction, mais ça va, mes enfants là, je te pousse à bout, je te avec un nerf. Now, as a school social worker, you're expected to train the school staff on emotional management. You're supposed also to meet students. And that is why I've written rain outside, just between inverted commas here, rain, just to illustrate an example with you. Suppose you plan to go out today, right? Suppose you plan to go out today and you find that it's sunny, it's a very good weather, nice weather, and suddenly it starts raining. It starts raining. If you get angry, will it make the rain stop? Yesterday afternoon, on a private radio, there was an interesting debate going on indiscipline in schools. I don't know how many of you managed to listen. There were some interesting ideas, but there were some ideas that were dépassées. Vous savez, les élèves en 2023, les dames au prépare de classe, si nous tenons pour établir une caractéristique, sans qu'il nous donne la vulgarité, une caractéristique des élèves 2023. Si nous tenons pour établir une caractéristique, qui caractéristique des élèves 2023? M'écoute, je. Comment je t'ai ça, mes enfants? Une caractéristique qui nous est capable d'identifier. Fulchan, Ashna, et les élèves en 2023. Divika,
Monsieur,
Oui,
école buissonnière,
ok. Ban enfants qui ont envie de se sauver, pas envie de venir à l'école. Ok. Un autre élève?
la
Mélina?
drogue dans l'école, la drogue.
Ok. Ok.
Du côté
Bébé.
technologie,
Ok. Zut.
lanceur,
Au fait, mon papa, j'ai identifié problème, moi, hein. Mon papa, j'ai identifié problème. Caractéristiques, nous, scènes, personnalités, enfants. Qui ont été, par exemple, vous êtes well versed around technology. Ça, c'est N. Well versed around technology. Pas mal de problème. Nous, pas de problème, nous, pas de scène, vous êtes personnalité. C'est ban élèves, donc moi, zut, parce que c'est un petit peu difficile, parce que ça, c'est un module de psychologie, ça. C'est ban élèves qui multitasking. Vous êtes capable de faire des trois petites choses en même temps. Vous êtes bien de remarquer que ban enfants, contrairement, enfin, ban élèves, primaire et secondaire, pré-primaire aussi, contrairement à nous, je écoute la musique quand je travaille. Je peux manger toujours, je t'écoute la musique, oui, David, quand une minute avec vous, je retourne vers où là. Je peux écouter la musique, je peux regarder la télévision, je peux faire des voix, je peux manger, multitasking. Je peux faire plusieurs petites choses en même temps. Je suis content, servi beaucoup, je téléphone. Alors, qui fait quand nous dire qui ban enfants aujourd'hui, ban élèves aujourd'hui, nous essayons d'utiliser ban stratégie qui nous peux utiliser dans le passé, est totalement dépassé. Et normalement, les autres caractéristiques qu'ils ont identifiées, oui, des victimes, on revient vers où c'était là.
Monsieur, moi, je pense que les enfants paraissent over mature. Ça veut dire, je pense à l'époque, quand vous êtes un enfant, et qu'à ce là, votre maturité un peu plus.
Ok. Ça veut dire ban enfants aujourd'hui, vous êtes mature, peut-être qu'il
Un
est,
peu plus avant, un peu
est
plus connu.
accountable, peut-être par rapport à exposure to media, c'est ban enfants qui bien alerte, qui bien alerte de tout ce qui peut passer. Nous, peut-être dans nos générations, nous sommes un petit peu, on ne peut pas dire bête, hein, je comprends comment on peut dire quelque chose, nous pas connaître certaines petites choses. Je connais quelque chose trop vite, et je connais plus que nous-mêmes. Right? Je donne beaucoup d'importance aux jeunes aujourd'hui, aux enfants aujourd'hui, beaucoup d'importance à ban media role models, ban santé, ban acteur, surtout ban chanteur, hein. Je donne beaucoup d'importance. Je donne beaucoup d'importance, et d'ailleurs, je trouve imitate. Je imitate ban role models. C'est parce qu'il y en a une surexposition à médias. Ban élèves de 2023, c'est aussi un ban élève qui donne beaucoup d'importance, plus, beaucoup d'importance à zut peers. Si jamais vous pouvez zut, qui te dans zut ban camarade, zut capable de rentrer en conflit et zut prêt à défendre zut camarade, vous avez une certaine solidarité en zut. Nous aussi, nous avons une certaine solidarité, mais je suis très solidaire en Dieu. Ça, c'est une feature que nous nous remarquer. Ces bons enfants, bien sûr, évidemment, monsieur, des bons élèves, et dans une dimension classe, ethnicity, gender qui n'est pas pareil, c'est vrai. Je viens de différents milieux. Et c'est important à cause de ça même qui, en tant qu'un school social worker, moi, j'attire votre attention là, qui ou besoin et a un good profiling of students. Le good profiling of students is the most important thing qu'on voit dans l'école. On identifie, et on rentre dans l'école, que le headmaster, primary, the director of the pre-primary school, ou the rector, finit d'identifier les élèves qui ont des behavioral problems. Et parfois, dossier qui est quitté avec vous, les dossiers qui est incomplet ou pas connu qui est là, et on est dire, hein, le responsable de l'école, n'est dire school social worker, vous faire rappeler les enfants là. Ou cause ou getengo qui arrivé. Ou qui ou va le faire ou? Qui ou capable le faire? Pourquoi faire non ou? Et puis appeler les enfants là parce que vous êtes school social worker. Qui pour faire? Ou pour amener un miracle là? Pourquoi faire non? Donc, l'important pour qui ou comprend quel protocole qui a besoin d'utiliser quand ou pial dans l'école. les bons qui ou faire le head of the school, be aware qui, quand on fait poster Enzo, ou pas capable de joindre les élèves à la minute qui suivent, ou bien joindre ban staff, qu'on a un petit peu l'autre terrain qui peut arriver, identifier cause avec ban professeur, l'autre qui ban problème qui ban élèves faire face, qui fin faire, qui pas fin faire. Après, là où les enfants. Pas quand ils les enfants, parfois, les élèves, et dans les élèves, dire, quand ils causent entre eux-mêmes, et ensuite, ça va causer là, retourne vers management d'école, des autres, mais psychologue là, on finit comprendre les mots. Ça, c'est les élèves qui peuvent causer là. Hein. Psychologue là, on finit comprendre les mots. Moi, je dis, c'est là pour rester tranquille. Moi, je suis là pour dire non, laisse-les causer, laisse-les raconter tout ce qui est bien causé. Après, il y a temps, des périodes, 3 périodes infinies, laisse-moi aller tranquille. Moi, pas besoin de dire non, Donc, les enfants, c'est à nous, bien plus. Et en tant qu'un school social worker, il est important pour qu'ils remettent les pendules à l'heure. C'est que, ou pas capable de joindre des enfants à l'eau qui ne pas connaissent parce que n'a pas aucun rapport d'interest entre eux avec les enfants. Premier pas qu'ils ont faire, premier pas c'est vers le staff, c'est ça module, ça chapitre là. C'est vers le staff d'abord. Move towards the staff to know what are the problems. The staff, they know, surtout ban ce qu'il a depuis longtemps, je connais the school culture. Et quand je connais the school culture, je ne peux pas dire qu'ils ont une solution. But you need to use them in a very proper way to develop strategies to adapt to specific contexts. Et bien sûr, encourage the staff. Parce que ça va un conseil qui me mettait là sur slide là. C'est pas un conseil qu'ils ont trouvé dans votre manuel. C'est où peut train ban. Be firm. Be firm, but also encourage positive behaviors. Ne pas pour dire que dans toutes les situations, in all circumstances, that students must be encouraged in a positive way for them not to indulge in discipline. Loin de là. C'est pas ça qui m'opère dire. Mais nous disons qu'on a un système de recognize the importance of all students. C'est pas ces enfants qui peuvent sortir premier d'un cisé, qui disaient tout le temps in the limelight, puis gagnent pris l'année après l'année. Et c'est là que, avec le staff de l'école, nous devons établir un calendrier d'activités. Ou pas capable, rentre dans la classe, jeunes élèves. Première question, c'est ce que je peux écouter. Je ne sais pas connaître qui ça n'a été. Je peux commencer, c'est qu'à nous. Je peux commencer, il y a plusieurs formes de... inévitable. Donc, le point, c'est justement qu'ils ne sont pas capables de joindre les enfants sans qu'ils nous passent par the school staff. C'est après joindre the school staff, à un autre niveau, dans un autre chapitre, nous tu cause de parent and children relationship. Là, nous cause de staff education. Nous besoin qu'on reconnaisse, justement, que the school staff est important pour qu'ils nous capables de reach the students. Parce que ça va les students là faire confiance, un peu plus, pas totalement, pas totalement. Je vais faire un peu plus confiance à ban existing staff plutôt que ban newly posted school social workers. Donc, l'idée c'est, il y a un part actif aussi, et moi pour comprendre bien sûr, si ban school social workers, je devine avec une grande contrainte, une des plus grandes contraintes c'est que continuity in school. Ou poster là, intimement où aller. Donc, sans une continuité dans l'approche, there are school social work. I once had but they are not posted in schools. They are not posted in all schools. But I had a friend of mine who worked as a school social worker. I had a friend of mine who worked as a school social worker, but as such, the post itself does not exist formally. But I came to not the conclusion, but to the idea that it's not that when you do this module that you will end up as a school social worker. Some of you are already working with students. Some of the advice that are being given as a teacher, I came to understand also that some of you could be posted as teachers in primary schools or maybe in secondary schools or in pre-primary schools. The point is that we need to have a good profiling of students. We need to have strategies adapted to specific contexts and work in close collaboration with others. And we need to encourage positive behaviors. Students like to feel that they are important. They like to feel that they're important. Sometimes it's too much, but they like to feel that they are important. And we are not telling you that at the expense of doing your work, you need to make students only feel acceptable. This is not what we are telling you. You have excusez-moi. Donc, you will understand that that's very difficult to find a one solution that works for everyone. But the Unit 3 stresses upon using the school staff as an intermediary between you as a school social worker and the students. So the school staff is a bridge. You are using them to reach the students. The students are engaged in discipline, etc. In this chapter, I'm not talking about what I'm going to do with the students. I'm talking about how I'm going to use the staff. So I am reaching on Unit 4. I'm going to talk about Unit 4 now on the home, the school, and the community liaison. So the Unit 4 is now going to talk of how the school is going to reach the community partnership. Now, it's very important. Recently, I met someone who was working on a project, and this person was telling me that it's very important for the school to reach the community. The school to reach the community. What does it mean, the school to reach the community? I think that the students, the staff, the students, they must come to understand that their roles is not restrained to what takes place in the school. They also have a duty as part of a community. They have a duty for the surroundings. In a particular region, that of course I'm not going to mention, there is a school, and next to the school, there is a home, there is a shelter. And we are not telling you that all schools must do whatever I'm telling you they are doing. No. But the school elaborates certain programs where they bring students to prepare a musical item, to prepare a lunch, and to reach the community. Using the students and the staff as well to reach the community. This is something which is very important. It's not only in terms of visiting the homes. Sometimes there are so many community-based projects that we can engage the students. Previously, somebody was telling me something. When students come to school and they are not given the opportunity to find an activity that fits their needs, this is where they start doing things that you would be astonished that they do. It's not only a question of monitoring. Monitoring is very important. The role of the school social worker is not to walk around in the school. It forms part, but it's not to walk around. Otherwise, you should be given allowance for shoes, isn't it? Non, c'est pas ça. Le management, les profs, tout le monde, vous êtes concernés par ce que les élèves font. When students are not stepping into a class, when students are not wearing the school uniform, when students are having certain disruptive behaviors, it's the responsibility of everyone to make sure that they report to the person concerned, And if they don't report, and if they tolerate certain things, then the other people, they are the ones to pay for this situation. For example, let us take a very minor example. It's not a minor example, but I'm taking it as a minor example. Students not wearing school uniforms. Students not wearing school uniforms. Maybe you have noticed that. School students not wearing school uniforms. At 1 or at 2, or when the school is during the day, you find that a student is not wearing the school uniform. The main question that I ask myself is that, was this student in a class in the morning? And if the student was in a class, did the teacher manage to identify that this was an issue? And what was done? What was done? If the student is missing out of the class, what was done? Was the student reported? So it's the duty of not only the school social worker, but of the staff to inform the management about what is happening. So we are not telling you again, I'm emphasizing on that school social workers, they cannot bring as if they get into, you are going to be in conflict with the staff if you come to tell them they need to do that, they need to do that, they need to do that. But based on the unit 3, once you identify that there is a problem, maybe it's not your duty to tell the teachers. It's your duty to prepare a report to inform the management of the school. The management of the school is responsible to talk to the teachers. They are responsible of identifying the problems. So there are some theoretical frameworks that we are going to look at today. For Unit 4, we are going to talk of the ecological system theory. The ecological system theory is a theory which provides a systematic approach to explain behavioral problems of students and their poor performance at school. So, when you are talking about the ecological system, you are talking about the relationship that exists between the family, the school, and the staff, or if you want, the school community. So, the role of the school social worker, it's not the parent. Maybe you have understood that it's not parent here. You should put it teacher here. Teacher, I'm going to replace it afterwards. It has to be teacher here. Teacher, parent, child. The teacher-parent-child relationship is most commonly addressed by school social workers, as one missing corner of a triangle can contribute to unhealthy emotional development. Now, when we are talking about the clinical social work, previously we spoke about the responsibility of the school social worker to make an evaluation, to make an assessment, of the situation, to make an evaluation of the situation, to be able to provide to parents, to provide to the staff support and advice. Support and advice so that they can maximize their work. So the consultation that the school social worker must establish is not only with the school staff, it's also with the parent. We are expected also, when I say we, to meet the parents. Now, again, you are going to ask me, monsieur, pouvez-vous appeler parents? Pour appeler parents, parents là, vini. Parfois, vous trouvez parents là, d'une certaine façon, il n'est pas pour venir même pour commencer. Mais qui nous fait dans ce cas-là, monsieur? Mais pourquoi faire non? Si on appelle parents là, pas de venir qui vous faire. Pourquoi faire non? Ou vous bien utilise les moyens, parce que si un parent les périfise pour capable résoudre un problème, à haut niveau, pourquoi faire non? À haut niveau, vous besoin développer une stratégie at the school level, pour essayer d'établir un contact. Mais bien sûr, comme on disait, il y a un staff qui est là depuis très longtemps, et il y a un parent qui est un petit peu plus à l'aise avec un ou des professeurs, pas avec tout professeur. Et ça va des enfants qui ont un problème là, et qui, si jamais besoin, il y a une home approach qui bisa faire, as a school social worker, d'aller là, monsieur pédiatre, qui nous bisa joindre ban staff. Et quand nous identifions des enfants qui ont un problème, qui ban professeur qui a habitué de deal avec ce ban problème là, qui ban staff qui a habitué de deal avec ce ban problème là. B, est-ce qu'il y en a quelqu'un qui a habitué agir comme un intermédiaire ou qui plie habitué avec un parent si jamais il a lit. Nous pas remplacer la personne, mais nous essayons d'établir un contact, nous essayons de guetter comment nous sommes capables d'intervenir dans une approche si jamais nous pouvons aller vers les parents. Donc, ça c'est le Clinical School Social Work. Et il y a un autre modèle qui nous appelle The Crisis Intervention Model. The Crisis Intervention Model, c'est un modèle quand students are dealing with acute crisis. Acute crisis in a 7 étapes. Assessment of safety and lethality, rapport building, problem identification, addressing feelings, generating alternatives, developing action plan, and follow-up. Un exemple qui est capable d'une crisis, une acute crisis, c'est un suicide attempts. Encore une fois, mourir des autres, il ne faut pas nous mélanger de responsabilités. En tant qu'un school social worker, ou pas pour capable, comment on rentre dans l'école, ou pour juste résoudre un problème, par exemple, à une suicide attempt. Vous devez connaître qui finit faire au préalable, qui responsabilité qui finit être allouée à un psychologue qui tient en haut, etc. Qui sont les enfants là, que vous sortis, et basé là, ou faire un travail. Et non pas comment on rentre dans l'école, on est penser qu'il est capable de résoudre tout le problème. Il n'y a pas des rôles comme ça. Hein? Moi, je vous donne un simple exemple. You are posted in a school. And there is an acute crisis among the behavior of a student. The head of the school calls you, and the head of school is going to tell you, hey, as a school social worker, what can you do? Try to talk with a student. Well, your role is not to talk. That would be the role of the psychologist. That would be the role of other specialists, because you might lack the professionalism required to be able to find the right words to talk to students. But if there are situations like this, when there is an acute crisis, there are some teachers who are closer to students. You need to work together with those teachers, with those staff. You need to work with them so that they are able to understand students much better than you, much better than us who are new to a school. And then they are going to tell us themselves. You see, these students have been working with this student for depuis la forme 1, depuis la first, seconde. Il y a toujours eu des comportements difficiles avec cet enfant. On a essayé plusieurs choses, mais ça ne marche pas. On peut faire beaucoup de choses, mais on ne fait pas ce qu'il faut faire. On peut faire beaucoup de choses, mais on ne fait pas ce qu'il faut faire. Et the role of a school social worker, c'est to do what must be done and not to do many things. On peut faire beaucoup de choses, beaucoup de stratégies, and then the strategies don't work. It means that you need to ask yourselves, are those mechanisms that we have put in place, are they good? And now you're going to face one of the most greatest problems. I told you at the beginning of the lecture, it's about the bureaucratic conditions, the bureaucratic principles. That is, the school, the education system is organized in such a way that you cannot do anything. You have to go according to what is being asked from you. But I reiterate what I have said, the role of the school social worker is to intervene by using the staff, by using the parents, and of course, working together for the betterment of the student. Now, the cognitive behavioral therapy, the students who are victims of abuse at home, they are the ones needing behavioral therapy. But again, school social workers don't provide such type of behavioral therapies because these are tools that are used more by psychologists. But we can develop an array of activities. We can develop an array of activities together with the staff of the school, together with the management of the school, to reduce certain cognitive behavioral problems. Then you have the homeschool community relation models. This model, the homeschool community model, is a model where you want to upgrade, you're working with students who are having low achievement, and you need to be able to guide both the parents and the students in the channel. Students who are failing at the end of a school program in grade 6 or in grade 9, it's not all of a sudden that they fail. There may be situations, but their record shows that they already have a tendency towards failure. And it's not when they have reached the end of the grade 6 or the grade 9 that you're going to find as un fail bila pa koni ki bisa faire. The role of all those concerns in improving the educational achievement of students is, of course, to provide help to the parents and to the students to understand that there are other avenues to explore. There are other avenues to explore. And we are not mentioning a specific avenue. And when students find something that makes sense for them, they give the best of themselves. They give the best of themselves to be indulged in disruptive behaviors because disruptive behaviors make sense for them. Vous êtes indisciplinés, vous êtes fait aller bien même parce que vous êtes content de faire aller. If they would use the same energy, if you would channel the same energy to something else, then it would be different. Now, what are the needs and the challenge that needs to be addressed? you have the list of programs, the list of issues, attendance, participation, retention in education, family support around educational issues, empowerment of parents. So at some point in times, I did mention that you will be expected to meet parents. So you will be expected to get them embarked on understanding, because the system also is based on that. The system is also at fault to certain level, to certain extent, not to all extent, that we have a very academic way of looking at things. That is, a good student is a student that get good marks. A bad student is a student that get bad marks. With this kind of philosophy prevailing, we are excluding students. And when we are excluding students with this kind of philosophy, this is where they get embarked on different kind of disruptive behaviors. So establishing the link between the parents, between the teachers, between the students, about what works best for the interest of the student, what can be done for the interest of the student. Unfortunately, I agree with you that sometimes we are without any ways or any resources to do anything, because we don't have anything to do. We can't do anything because the system is not providing for such and such things. A class teacher of a primary will be expected to work with 30 students, 40 students or more. And it will be difficult for the teacher to look into the welfare of all those 40 students equally. So this is where the class ratio must be looked into again. And that's not the role of a school social worker to say that the class ratio must diminish. That's on the high authorities to find ways and means. Coping mechanisms to deal with indiscipline in schools. The coping mechanisms may be in primary or secondary school. It involves all the stakeholders. A group of students caught being indulged in some kind of gross misconduct. Well, of course, they need to be sanctioned. But before they need to be sanctioned, there is a need to understand what was the cause of the behavior. And sometimes the cause of the behavior is linked. I want to tell you something that you already know. The cause of behavior is very often linked to something that we didn't do. But we fail to see what we don't do. We see what others don't do. This is in the nature of people. We fail to see what we don't do. We see what others fail to do. That is, we continuously play a blame game. And as long as we play a blame game, then there is no solution and the students are left at stake. Oui, mais ça, parents, pas des enfants. Parents disent, oui, mais professeur, pas des enfants. Les temps de professeur, ouais, mais l'école pas de non. L'école dit, mais ouais, mais ban parents pas de non. Finalement, ça can renvoie lui. So, la balle, comment nous dire. Donc, il y a un besoin pour qu'il nous adresse un problème dans l'école en utilisant une approche holistique, en prenant tout le partenaire, les autres assisés, les autres comprennent qu'ils ont le rôle, et comprennent qu'il a le besoin pour réaliser que l'école en 2023, il n'est plus ce qu'il était avant les années 2000. La mentalité des élèves finit de changer. L'attitude de bas élèves finit de changer. Les médias finissent de changer. Et si nous prenons une approche pour dealer avec les enfants, dans les générations à venir, je ne trouvais même en Amérique qui n'arrivait. Et dans ma fusillade qui arrivait dans ma université, dans ma école, une fusillade qui fait parfois, qui de nous un frisson dans les deux, quand on quitte sa bonne situation-là. Mais si ça continue, mais il n'est pas étonnant qu'il nous trouve ça dans plusieurs parties du monde, nous gagnons ça un problème là. Nous arrive un obstacle, dans ce slide-là, un obstacle qui est capable de faire face, ban parents, they show resistance, ban parents même quand vini, quand vous partagez toute l'expérience, pas pour cause au primaire ou secondaire, là, hein, pour cause en général, mais tu partages ça avec eux la dernière fois. Il y a des parents qui ont vini, vous êtes venus avec une colère pour résoudre un problème. Et pour faire eux raisonner, il est possible pour faire eux raisonner. Vous pouvez venir avec eux droit là, eux. Des fois, plus qu'avec eux droit. Vous pouvez venir avec une attitude de défense. Et quand vous venez avec une attitude de défense, peu importe qui dit monde qui vous met dans votre chemin, vous pouvez agir d'une façon très violente. Donc, l'important, pour qui en tant qu'un school social worker, nous comprenons qu'il y a un cadre qui dépasse. Et quand il y a un cadre qui dépasse nous, nos catégories, là, ben, ou bien faire appel à une autorité concernée. Une autorité concernée qui deal contre violence, c'est pas teachers. Parce que violence in a public place is dealt by the police. Donc, si, by the time qui, hein, ça c'était une grande lacune, ça. Jusqu'à présent, en 2023, il n'y a aucun policier qui postait dans l'école. Aucun policier pas posté dans l'école. Il y a un policier qui postait dans l'hôpital. Vous avez trouvé ça? Oui. Policier posté dans un bureau de sécurité sociale. Mais qui fait un policier pas posté dans l'école? Ne pas dire qu'il y a un policier pour résoudre le problème indiscipliné, non. Mais quand il y a un problème, un parent qui, ce comportement dépasse certains cadres. C'est pas parce que le social worker, ni le recteur, ni le teacher qui est capable de calmer les parents là. Hein? Impossible ça. Parents là, quand ils viennent avec une colère, ils viennent avec tout. Et pour qu'ils viennent dire, on fait stress management, emotional management avec lui, il n'est pas pour comprendre ça du tout. Donc ça, c'est un autre chose qui est jusqu'à présent. Ne pas cause, ne pas attendre ce cadre-là, cadre de la loi. Il faut dire que quand parents là, finissent une bataille qui gagne, là, la police vous venir, la police vous dit qu'il est arrivé, et là, finalement, après un peu de temps, je trouvais qu'ils ont fait la teigne. Par contre, qui ça n'a pas de le but, c'est que ça gagne pour libérer de sa bonne contrainte-là. Et le rôle d'un school social worker, c'est pas pour calmer les parents. Là, hein. Le rôle d'un school social worker, c'est établir un contact avec son staff, établir un contact avec mes parents, certes, mais quand on a habitué, deal avec mes parents. Après plusieurs sessions que tu es dans l'école, plusieurs années où dans l'école, ou pour connaître comment pour deal avec certaines situations, avec certains parents. Ou pour connaître. Mais si au niveau dans l'école, qui peut le deal? Ça, lecture unit 3 et unit 4 là, est basé sur les assumptions. The assumptions that change will happen in the long run. Change will happen in the long run. Nous arrivons maintenant à the School Community Partnership, someone calls the School Community Partnership, on finit causer. Nous avons différents guidelines qui nous capable de servir to maintain the school community practice, the school neighborhood mechanisms, capacity building, scale-up models, faire une activité pour la communauté. Amène l'école vers la communauté. Prends les enfants, faire eux comprendre qu'ils ont rôle, c'est aussi vivre dans une communauté. Engage eux même dans une activité. Engage eux même dans une activité communautaire. Communautaire veut dire pour le bien de la société. Et il y a beaucoup d'enfants qui ne sont pas intéressés. Hein. Vous n'êtes pas intéressés même avec l'école, avec l'aspect académique. Mais quand on commence de nous un aperçu de qui ban les autres options qui est là, les autres involvement dans mon activité qui ouvert towards reaching the community. Je ne pas dire tous les élèves, mais certains élèves sont impressionnés par votre involvement. Par votre involvement pour all get involved dans mon activité community. Et dans mon programme, dans mes différentes écoles, que je partage avec eux, c'est à rendre visite dans home. Mais, pour pas dire à rendre visite dans home pour résoudre tout problème d'indiscipline dans Maurice, il faut bien comprendre ça. Je ne pas dire ça du tout, moi. Mais je dire que, to a certain extent, involving students in community work, by making them understand that they can also play a significant role as a citizen, it could be a best intervention. When we ask some students, for instance, to make like a kind of presentation on certain things, to use technology, they are also very good in doing that. We have reached the last slide. So the role of a school social worker is to develop a framework for results according to short-term and long-term goals. We saw that since the right beginning of the lecture today. And it is also very important for the school to meet the shareholders and the stakeholders' needs during effective delivery service. So based on the planning of our class, we should meet maybe, I don't know when, maybe it will be around the 20th of April. So it will be around this date. We are going to talk only one chapter. We are going to talk of the Unit 5 only. Are there any other issues related to your assignment that you are supposed to submit? I was talking to students at the beginning, and I was telling you that it is important for you to understand that I will pay more attention to an original work. It means that you are providing the right examples, the right referencing as well. That's true. But if it is something which is copy-paste, it will be very difficult for me to give marks for that. Because I need to see, because listen, we are not all of us school social workers, but we are trying to be school social workers for the sake of this module. So it means that even if I'm not a school social worker, I'm trying to use the tools that exist, the framework that exists, to understand certain situations. It's hypothetical. So any hypothetical situation will be useful one day, or it might not be useful as well. But given that this module forms part of your curriculum framework, you are expected to show interest and consistency in your assignment. If ever it goes slightly beyond the amount of words, it won't be a problem. It won't be a problem. Slightly, I will accept. Some students might ask me, Monsieur, slightly là, combien ça? It all depends. Je ne vais pas vous mettre une restriction, mais ça va. Un petit title page, un petit introduction, une petite discussion, une petite théorie, un petit exemple, un petit élément qui est là, avec aussi un bon referencing. Dans votre assignment, besoin d'un aussi un bon referencing. Donc, pour les temps qui restaient, aujourd'hui, je vous demande de prendre les temps pour aller get votre assignment, pour finir un petit peu votre assignment, parce que je crois qu'on prend que le 8 avril, c'est la date pour retourner votre assignment pour School Social Work. Faire une manière de finir poster. Si jamais votre programme coordinateur donne-nous permission, bon, pas connaître pour quelle raison, pour qu'il y ait une extension ou pas, des points pour moi, mais si il n'y a aucune extension, donc, je ne finis gagner un assignment là depuis la dernière fois, donc, il finit fait à peu près un mois, donc, là, je pour besoin commence complète cet assignment. Je vous souhaite une bonne fin d'après-midi, bon appétit, et me donne ce rendez-vous pour nos prochaines sessions vers la fin du mois d'avril. Allez, bye bye tout le monde.
Bye bye, monsieur.
Au revoir, au revoir, au revoir,
Au revoir, Michel.
au revoir,
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
au revoir, au revoir.